This is April.
And this is Tiffany. And you are now listening to the Tea of Life podcast.
Hey, welcome, Tea of Life listeners, to episode 34. We're in season 2. And I just need to stop us right here for a minute because I need to tell you about the new intro. And I know it's going to look like I am tooting my own horn. And I really... What were you going to say?
Which you totally are. No, I'm kidding.
But I feel like this is a step of receiving, let me just say, the new intro that you guys heard, we changed up a song, and it's something that I wrote. I gave it to my friend Brad, and he arranged it, added some instruments and flair to it, and now we have something to use. And the reason I say that is because if you know me, you know I have several incomplete projects in my life. And I want to say, you out there, listener friend, if you have many incomplete projects, fear not. You too can finish a project. Or if
I don't have any incomplete projects in my life.
The end. See you next week. No, okay, so what I just wanted to recognize the fact, I wanted to recognize the fact that this is something I was passionate about doing. This whole thing. Remember, when we started this podcast, March of last year, we sat down with our husbands at a table. We kind of made some notes, and we found some free music that you can use. Right. Anyone can use it. It just says, just post who the author of that or the creator of that song was. That's all they wanted. But,
and we pretty much went with the first one we heard, I think.
Yeah, and it was fine. I mean, we used it, whatever.
And that works. Okay, one less thing we have to.
Yeah, check it off the box. And I remember Tiffany even saying, "Okay, our husbands are musicians. We thought that they would come up with something, but they
however we were mistaken.
And they're busy, and I get that, but so it wasn't. So we settled on the jingle. Obviously, we used that, and we're fine with it. And I remember. Do you remember this? It was in May, and I was in Ohio because my cousin was getting married, and you sent me this text or a clip of the jingle.
It was on a YouTube video that I was watching, and I was like, wait a minute, that's our same one. That's the same one we used.
Right.
And at that moment, we're like, okay, we're done.
We've got to do something. So that was May. So I remember I was at my cousin's wedding, and you sent me that. So then a couple months later, or maybe sometime around the summer, I just kept getting this little jingle in my head. And now I get tunes in my head for songs for my kids. I'm sure other people do too. I get worship songs. I'm not a musician. But I am a writer. Remember, I am a writer.
Yes, you are.
We're just going to, whatever. So moving on. And I had this little jingle in my head. And I remember one day we were sitting, you were doing some editing. And I kept hearing this thing in my head. And I would get different melodies in different spots. I'd be in the shower and I'd get the melody. I'd be walking down the street and I'd get a different part of the melody. So I would voice record. I'd go to the piano and I'd start, I can't play the piano, but I started poking out the notes there. And I recorded it. And then I shared it with Conrad. And he's like, that's really good. And so we were sitting down this one day, and you were recording, and I was like on GarageBand trying to pew it out. And I was listening to several podcasts going, I know if this is something that I'm just regurgitating, then that's one thing. But if this is really something that's mine, I'd like to run with it. So once I realized that, no, it wasn't something that I was recalling from many of the podcasts that I listened to, I started writing this down, and I was sharing it with Conrad. We mapped it out. He was encouraging me, you should talk to Brad, because Brad's done an album. He loves this kind of thing, wheelhouse, making and arranging songs and adding flair to it. And so I finally got the nerve and said, hey, Brad, this is like at the end of the summer. Hey, Brad, I've been thinking about, a jingle for Tea of Life. And he's like, yeah, run it by me. So next month later, he's like, hey, are you still doing that? And I'm like, oh yeah. And he's like, just send me the voice, just make it, super easy. Just go on the piano, plinky plonky plink the notes and send it to me. And so I did. And he came up with what you just heard. And I'm very excited because whatever was in my head, he totally nailed it. And it was really encouraging. So I got to collaborate with my friend and coworker on something. I got to put something came into fruition that was in my head. And that whole thing, all of that long thing just to say, I did something and you can too. If I can do it, anybody can do it. So
Right.
now there's many other things that are still there, that are still, on my wheelhouse to do. But now I'm encouraged to actually see it, follow through with it. I'm like, I did that.
Right.
So that's why I wanted to talk about the intro. Yes. So if anything, it doesn't have to be a chart stopper. The books that I write don't have to be bestsellers, but they're for me and God gave them to me. And I just have to be responsible to get them out. Anything that we do. So that's that. Now, the second thing on my list, not to just go through not just to run over that whole intro song, but we spent some time on that. The listeners are probably like, yeah, move on. So Instapot craze. You've had yours for several years.
Yes, I have. I've had mine for about 3 years now.
I just want to make sure that you guys knew that she's had hers.
I have had my Instapot for about 3 years. My sister-in-law actually called me up one day. Literally, I was watching videos online about using a pressure cooker. And I kept thinking, I really should use my pressure cooker because I just had this fear of using a pressure cooker, right? Just a regular one that you put on the stove. And I kept thinking, I really need to get over this fear and I need to start using my pressure cooker. And I'm literally thinking that, literally watching the videos, and she sends me a text that says, hey, would you like this? I don't want it anymore. Yeah. I'm literally sitting here watching videos on pressure cooking, and she sent me. So it was about 3 years ago, and I'd never heard of them. And so I brought it home, started using it, and was instantly hooked with it.
Instantly,
yeah, instantly,
like instantly
hooked.
Pun intended.
Instantly hooked. Yes. Yeah.
So you made a lot of recipes.
I've used it a lot. I haven't used I haven't made a whole lot of different recipes, but yes, I have used it a lot with the same recipes.
That's good.
If that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. It really does. My mother wanted one for Christmas, and we got her, my sister-in-law got her one for Christmas. And then ever since then, it's like people popping up on Facebook, I got this for Christmas. And then I was like, oh gosh, I can't get one yet because I have to wait for everyone. Calm down.
Now they're out of stock. So now you can't get one.
Amazon was like, yeah, it ships to you in 4 to 5 months. And that was on Prime. So I was like, no. So I ended up doing a little side gig, and I used that money for the Instapot. I got it at Target, and they shipped it to me. And the funny thing is they'll have this big warning sticker that says, this ships in the actual box. It does not ship in a Target box. And you're like, okay. So if you want to send it as a gift and you want to be secret about it, you might want it to come to you, or you might want to make sure. Also, you might want to make sure that if you have it in a safe place when the UPS guy comes and delivers it. I'm like, I said to my mother, I was talking to her, I said, is there like some sort of a stealing Instapot craze? And she's like, yeah. And so
oh my goodness.
I was telling this to Kale. I was telling it to Conrad at dinner, and Kale helper heard us, and he was like, Grandma steals Instapots? That was the takeaway. And I'm like, yes, Grandma goes around stealing Instapots. And there's a warning on the Target website. This box or this item comes
about
in
your
the actual
grandma.
box about your grandma. So that's it. But I made biryani. So I made an Indian recipe Conrad found, and I made that, and it was great. And then I made something today, and it wasn't so great. So I'm still going to use it because I hate cooking. Everyone, I think, knows that I hate cooking.
I just love being able to pull 3 pounds of chicken out of the freezer, instantly put it in the Instapot.
Out of the freezer,
into the Instapot, cooked in 25 minutes, tender, falling apart, juicy.
Right.
And then I use the broth, and I will can the broth and use that for future recipes or whatever. And so I get the broth and I get the chicken. And so that's probably what I use it mostly for, is something like that. The other day I was making, I have a recipe that my mom made, Spanish rice was her recipe. And so sometimes I'll make it. I haven't made it in quite a long time, so I decided to make it the other day. Well, I had some rice actually from Bread Becker's.
Okay.
But I usually use instant rice. Well, this is actually not instant rice. And so I thought, well, I'm going to use this rice instead. And so it took forever for it to cook on the stove. So finally I just took everything and dumped it in the Instapot, turned it on like 15 minutes, and it was done.
Hey,
it was great.
Yeah.
So what's going on with you? You gave in to the Instapot craze, and I saw you at a store the other day.
Oh, God, out of my house. was I doing? I don't remember. Yeah, I think I have a new lease on life. And it started a couple of years ago, really, when I realized that I needed a change. I found myself one day in Barnes & Noble's, and it's one of the happy places. It's a designated happy place.
It is.
And I was looking through the Christian section. Sometimes I'm in finance, sometimes I'm in business, but this day I was the Christian section. I was having no real direction. And I was just hoping that something would jump out at me. And I came across this book titled Loving My Actual Life, an experiment in relishing what's right in front of me by Alexandra Kuykendall. And I started reading it. I literally just plopped down on the floor right there. And as I was reading, my insides felt like they were going to implode. Like this book was resonating with me so much. My spirit was like, yes, and amen. Like I wanted to shout, run around the bookstore. This book was showing me how I could take the ordinary and make it extraordinary. And has months that she did her challenge. Like she just broke up her life into little. I mean, your life is already broken up into months and days and minutes and hours.
Right.
But she did little challenges throughout the month, and she just kind of wrote about what came about during that month. Day one. Sometimes, and it was funny. I was reading the book, and she'd be like, "Day 1, talk about it. Day 2, talk about it." And it'd be like day 5, and I'd be like, "Oh no, she missed some days in there." And then it took me a while to be like, "Oh no, it's just like a journal."
Okay.
And we just we don't journal every day. I don't journal every day. I know you have a love-hate relationship with journaling, but anyhow, so I just found that this book gave me some order to my chaos. Although I'm really excited about this upcoming year, I feel like Kevin from Home Alone. I've been posting this GIF a lot everywhere. So it's him when he realizes he's free to do whatever he wants. He realizes his family is gone. There's nobody at the house. And he's like, running around, and he's waving his hands in the air. That's how I feel because I finally have control over my life, how I live it versus just being a passive participant in it. So that brings me to this quote. In the end, it's not the years in your life that count. It's the life in your years, said by Abraham Lincoln.
That's
and
awesome.
It's also in this book. But so the goal was, what happened, why this book resonated with me, was I was already kind of starting to be like, I need a change, I need to do something, and I realized that I need some sort of a focus or a sort of a direction to be like, okay, this month I'm going to stop technology. She talks about the first month, I think, is just kind of dialing down of taking away electronics or just taking away stuff. Her next month is first things first, the mornings. And she talks about my peeps. And I found it very interesting how she wrote. I found myself laughing. I found myself really enjoying it. And the takeaway was, you know what? I love my life. I love the people God gave me, my little family in this life. And I want to enjoy them more. And I didn't want to just be like something for me to do, like check them off my list. It'd be great to have her on and be like, hey, tell us about your book. But then again, you... So I tell Tiffany, hey, here's this book. This is what it's doing with me, blah, blah, blah. And she's like...
Yeah, so you let me borrow the book, and I start reading it. I enjoyed, getting into it and everything. And I thought, yeah, this is kind of cool. At first where she did take away the technology and stuff, right? And different things. And it doesn't have to be that we take away technology. We could take away whatever it is that is stealing the most time in our life, right? So... I could see where her paring that down or cutting that out was beneficial. But then I felt like everything after that, it was, I didn't really see her cutting out much more. I saw her trying to fit everything in.
Okay, like organized chaos.
Yes.
Organizing
chaos.
Okay.
Exactly. So she was starting to get up earlier. And then she was, trying to do certain things by certain times. And then she had like categories for different things. That's just how I remember it. And so I felt like she was, even though she took away some stuff in the beginning, I felt like she was really just trying to find a way to cram everything in her life and enjoy and love her life at the same time.
I just found it very refreshing how she would be, she laid out each month and she'd give little challenges or questions for reflections. Number 1 is, are you the days of wasting, in quotes, or an easier inner when it comes to mornings? Like, I'm like, a day's of wasting. I got to get up and go. I don't like to stay in the bed and lollygag.
I like to stay in the bed, and then once I get up, I'm like, shoot, I should have gotten up earlier. The day's of wasting. So I'm kind of like both.
So I liked it because it was journal. It was like a journal form. It was, I loved reading what she had to say. I loved, I just felt like, okay, yeah, my crazy, I can enjoy my crazy. My life is going to be crazy because we got a lot of just stuff going on, but I can enjoy my crazy. I enjoyed reading it, and it still kind of set the tone. So a couple years ago when I found it on the bookshelf, it kind of set the tone of, you know what, I can live my life. I can have a plan for it. I can start that.
Yeah, I think that book basically set off a forward motion of some other things going on, or some other things that we ended up implementing, which was not really minimalism, but just kind of cutting things out, kind of living a more minimalistic lifestyle.
Right.
And I think that book was probably the kickoff for around that time.
Yeah.
So it kind of instigated that and helped to kind of motivate us in that direction.
But it was funny because I remember reading this and going, oh my gosh, I'm already doing this. I could have wrote this book. No, I'm just kidding. No, but it was I found it in a good kind of challenging. Like 1 month is called Being Kind to My Body, health. And so what this really helped me do was go, so next year when I got a passion planner and you do road mapping, map out your life, what you want to do this month, 3 months, what do you want to be in, where do you want to be in the next year, 5 years, 10, so yes. So this kind of was like the, baby step 1 to getting the passion planner the next year. So there was how it was neat to see the progression of how God was bringing me to the fact that he knew I loved organizing, but it was very it was very not evident. It was like I'd been sitting on a shelf and collected dust over the years. And then he started dusting me off, and I was like, oh, I have value. I have, I can be a part of the body. So that was it. So we wanted to bring this book to your attention because we both had different viewpoints of it, and that was kind of fun.
I can say I recommend it, even though
I would recommend it. Yeah,
even though I had that opinion or that thought or feeling about it.
Yeah,
and I'm curious too what other people who have read it, what they think based on what you've said and what I've said.
Yeah, I think what I loved about it is that she did experiments, and I think that for me, if I take it on as a challenge, I'm like, okay, I'm going to test it out. It doesn't have to be a habit quite yet. This is how I'm forming this habit. And I think this, like she says, I'm going to step over the mommy guilt and make time for my body. So that's one of the things that I'm dealing with is like, you know what? Let's do an experiment about our health. Let's get the Instapot and start making actually home-cooked meals instead of the box stuff. So, it's all baby steps. It all ties down. All these things are really a roadmap of how I got to where I am today. And I could go on and on, obviously. So yesterday when I was sitting there, thinking about the podcast, and I was writing down some notes, and I had time. It wasn't my normal podcast time day, but I was like, I am ready to sit down and throw down some notes. Like, this is all in my head. And I was like, but I want to read this book that I'm going to tell you about in just a second. And then I want to read this book. And then on the homeschooling, and I'm still going to plan I was just like, I felt like I was in the fetal position.
I kind of feel like that too sometimes, I know.
And I think I posted it on our Tea of Life page.
I have all these things that I'm passionate about, and I want to do all of them. Yes. And I want to do all of them equally well. And I'm just, I'm feeling a little scattered. I'm really scattered or just, I don't really feel overwhelmed. I don't feel overwhelmed at all.
Not in a bad way.
Yeah, I just feel scattered, like I just need to focus on
and one of the things that so a shout out to a past episode was Dr. Shannon. So I sat there, and what I do with my planner, she taught us to go through our tasks, making Post-it notes, and like when you write baby steps, you write down your task and then you break it down into measurable steps. And so she showed us her wall like just plastered with Post-it notes, and she would move them around to where she, so she organized, she'd just write them all down, steps, and then categorize them, organize them. So at the end, she would put that online into a MindMeister. This is mapping. And I loved the Post-it note idea, but I was like, I'm wasting Post-it notes. So I just went to the digital form, and I think I showed you that. I think I showed you my MindMeister map, and you're like, what is this? This is too much. Yeah. And so I recently went back to just doing the Post-it notes because I really had to break down my steps. I really have to go, okay, today I have to do homeschooling. And I write out my Post-it note, homeschool organization. And I need to get drawers for my kids to be like, this is what we need. Here's subject math in this drawer. The next drawer is English, whatever. Because I've been watching YouTube videos, Confessions of a Homeschooler. I want to wrestle with this homeschool thing, and I want to win.
Yeah.
I want to be the best.
Right.
Sorry, I'm looking at her because I'm like, I have not stopped talking.
Okay, the look on her face right now.
Because I'm like, I think we both share that passion. We want to.
Absolutely.
We want to be so organized. You're an organized person by nature. You like to keep things. That's what I get from you.
Yes, I do. I love order. I love organization. I love for things to be, I believe that everything has a place and everything should be in its place. What's funny is my husband came home yesterday and he had a bag in his hand and I was like, what is that? And it was actually from the Container Store. And so he came in and he just kind of handed it to me and it had 2 little containers in it. And I go, you went to the Container Store? And he was like, yeah. And he was like all sexy about it.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Yes, that would be my Victoria's Secret. Like,
and I said, what did you get? And he was like, why don't you look inside and see? He's just like, And so I look inside and of course I see what it is, but I have no clue why he bought what he bought. I eventually figured it out. It was for the boat. It was for organizing some things for the boat.
Okay.
But I was like, but you went to the Container Store to buy it. Like, that's where you went. Like, you went to the Container Store to buy these particular items that you needed. And then he came home and gave me the bag. And I was like, this is awesome. Like, you are so sexy to me right now.
I know. Okay, our next field trip is to the Container Store.
Okay. What time do they close?
Here we go right now. I was in Office Max. Side note, everybody, bear with me. I was in Office Max yesterday, and I was getting, W-2s, 1099s, because I'm printing those off this week. And I was literally like walking up and down the aisles, drooling. And the salesman there was like, do you need some help? I'm like, no. I was like, I'm not going to buy the overpriced stuff at the office store, but I just still liked to look. And I was like, I am a sick person. I am drooling over, what do you call those round clips? You can, like, let's say you had an index card and you paper clip, hole punched a hole in the corner and you rung them all together with a little key ring thing.
Little ring, yeah.
Yeah. I was like, oh yeah, I could totally get these. And like, I spun, like, I could do centers with these. I was like, put them down. I had to tell myself, like, focus. So just like I have to focus right now. So yeah, we want to just touch that Loving My Actual Life book. I do want to talk about the 40-day prayer challenge, which starts on February 15th. It's with Mark Batterson, Circle Maker guy.
Right.
And he's doing a 40-day prayer challenge that starts February the 15th. You can just get on his list and you can download a study guide and go from there.
All right, yeah. So that was great. I loved hearing about your book. I'm excited about the 40-day prayer challenge that's coming up on February 15th. And until next time.
Until next time.
If you like Tea of Life podcast and you've got 2 friends who want to create the life that they love to live, tell them about us. Find us on your favorite social media platform like Facebook or Instagram. Also, right now before you forget, go to Apple Podcasts or Google Podcasts and search for Tea of Life podcast. Hit the subscribe button and never miss an episode. Thank you for listening to Tea of Life podcast. We'll see you next Monday.